Well, I want to go over a theme I kind of went over before in a different way, but you know, I know about these tech billionaires. They want to live forever. These tech billionaires out there, they think they have a way to live forever. There's people out there in their 60s or about almost 70 years old. They calculate their biological age in their low 40s. Maybe that's possible. Actually, I put out about a Chinese herbalist that supposedly lived to be over 250 years old, but either way you look at it, he must have been over 150. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there argue about, well, your cells can only divide so many times, and actually, it depends on what part of the body you're talking about, because, you know, bone structure the cellular cells in your bone structure doesn't divide that many times as compared to, say, the lining in your stomach. So every cell structure is different. Everything has a unique code in it, but basically, if you could protect the telomeres on the which are on the end caps of the chromosomes, which protect the inside strands of DNA, if you could protect that from shortening each time the cells divide, yeah, theoretically you could live maybe forever, as long as there's no accidents or other things that come up or whatever. Now, I did have put out a lot of videos on vitamin C, and I know, like, sometimes they're controversial. I don't even think maybe they're not even advertiser friendly, but, you know, I just got to put them out there because I think it's the biggest thing going. It's not the only thing, but it's the biggest thing. It's the #1 hormone. There's other things, and I can mention 50 things. I'm going to kind of stick it down to about 5, boil it down to about 5 on this, but I'm going to mention some other things. But vitamin C, and I mentioned this on a recent video I did. Actually, I'm taking 3 types of vitamin C, ascorbic acid, and it does not need to be some highfalutin special, you know, thing that's, you know, natural this and all this. It's just, you can just use plain ascorbic acid. People are going to argue about that, but I can tell you the best scientists around have been curing all kinds of diseases with it since the 40s. You know, Dr. Frederick Kleiner, Cathcart Levy, other doctors I've read books on with orthomolecular medicine. There was Linus Pauling. I've been reading about this extensively. As a matter of fact, I PDF'd all the books I have on it, the medical books I have on it, so I can read them on a computer. It makes it a lot easier. But, you know, vitamin C, and actually I'm showing here a woman with vitamin C. Vitamin C is known to protect collagen. As a matter of fact, if you're a cigarette smoker, you're pulling out 75 milligrams of vitamin C in your body, which is more than the recommended daily requirement, with just 3 cigarettes. What the hell do you think you get wrinkles for and heart disease and all this other stuff? There's so much this can protect. Ascorbic acid, sodium ascorbate is a very good one because it's, even though that has 1 electron donor versus 2 electron donors in ascorbic acid, sodium ascorbate is very easy on the stomach. It's not going to have any problem with the pH being too acidic. The only thing is, you got to kind of take it in little doses and divide, not little doses, but divided up doses during the day. I take a good 20,000 milligrams of it. You know, some people say you're crazy for doing that. That's bad or whatever, but that's what I'm doing, okay? You know, I know sometimes there's probably going to people will be giving me flack on this, or somebody's going to complain about this video for that reason, but there are some very, very highly qualified, not most medical doctors, but a few highly qualified medical doctors, and also the two-time Nobel Peace Prize winner, Dr. Linus Pauling, who's a chemist, not a medical doctor, but a chemist who sure as well knows what he should be doing about the chemical reactions in the body. They take about that much. And, you know, if you look at, you know, in the animal world, you know, a goat would produce about 15,000 milligrams of vitamin C in their body, 160-pound goat, and any veterinarian will tell you they're the least likely animal to get sick. And if they get sick, they produce about 100,000 milligrams of vitamin C or more in their body on their own, because they have a way to produce it on their own. So I applied a little common sense logic, but I'm going to tell you that there is stuff coming out in the corporate/medical world where they're going to extend people's lives by decades initially and maybe hundreds of years thereafter. You know, it'll be available to Hillary Clinton, Jeb Bush, and Donald Trump. It's not going to be available to us because it'll be cost prohibitive. But I'm going to give you something I think is probably going to work as well as that. And like I said, my regimen is to take 20,000 or more milligrams of vitamin C a day. I'm doing that. You don't have to do it, but from my best research and my best honest research, I think that is a anti-aging miracle to the max. And I balance it out with a number of things like selenium, alpha-lipoic acid, NAC, and different things that help recycle the vitamin C. So the vitamin C, you can also take ester C, but that's not good to take a lot of when you're taking a lot of it because it's got calcium in it. I've said these things before, but then again, you know, I think a lot of people need to look at it from the beauty angle, the collagen. Actually, even garlic is another thing that's good for collagen, believe it or not. A lot of people don't believe that. Would you believe that? You know, ladies, are you listening? Women, are you listening? For skin beauty, garlic actually is very good for collagen. Italian women seem to have very good olive skin. It seems to hold up. Some of them do, some don't. I don't know. It depends on who it is. And I think it depends on your regimen that you do for as spices and herbs and other things that you do in your nutrition. It's not all genetics. Actually, it's not mostly genetics. It's mostly your environment and your nutritional uptake that really controls your aging of your skin more than anything. Another thing to do is niacin or vitamin B3. It's best to take the flush type, the true nicotine acid. You could take the sustained release. I take at least 1,000 milligrams of it, sometimes 3,000 or 4,000 milligrams of it a day. But I divide it up and I use the sustained release. There have been things I have read. I'll give it to you secondhand, where people there's been I don't know how strong these studies are. Maybe they're not the best in the world. Somebody could argue with them, but I'm looking at information that's coming from medical doctors versus taking it off the internet and blogs and things like that. Books I've read, I'm not going to actually give you their sources because I don't know if I should, if it's their work or whatever the heck it is, but things I've read, you might be able to find it anyway on the internet. But basically, they're saying if you're taking a few thousand milligrams of true niacin, the flush type, but like in divided up doses during a day and 250 milligram doses a day, or getting the sustained release type, you can easily reduce the incidence of heart attack by 90%. By 90%. It's extremely good for opening up. That flush actually opens up your capillaries, your veins, and everything. It's good for overall health. It's actually a detoxifier, too. Big time. Big time. And, other things are actually going on here, too, because the vitamin C is an absolute antiviricide, antimicrobial, you name it. If you take too much of it, it's better than doing a colon flush because you're actually, because you have that bowel intolerance, it's actually going from the stomach all the way through and just, it flushes out all the bad toxins if you take too much vitamin C. So it's probably, if you took too much, it's not even a bad thing in that respect, as long as you don't do it too many times like that. But the other thing to do is also coconut oil. Coconut oil has been known as actually a miracle oil for many, many, many centuries. Now, it's not pushed too much in this country, but if you look at what medical doctors say in Malaysia and the Philippines, it's like they're really looking into the antimicrobial properties of coconut oil. But, also coconut oil has been known to absolutely reverse Alzheimer's disease, sometimes in several days. Now, where it did miracles on Alzheimer's disease was because a lot of times the Alzheimer's disease was happened because of statin drugs to lower cholesterol, which is another thing. And, I should mention about that niacin, it will lower cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, and raise the good cholesterol. That's another thing I read about it in books on orthomolecular medicine, just to give you something. I'm just shooting right from the hip on this because I don't run a script, but I read extensively, and I could talk about this for hours. But getting back again to coconut oil actually has been one of the best things for the skin, not only topically, but also internally. If you take it internally, it nourishes the skin internally. It nourishes the skin also topically if you put it on the skin. As a matter of fact, it's the only oil, even if when you put it on your hair, it's the only oil that doesn't sit on a hair, but the hair itself absorbs the oil, and it's an antimicrobial. Actually, if you think, I could give you a story when President JFK, John F. Kennedy, was in World War II with the PT-109 that got cut in half by the Japanese, I guess it was a destroyer that cut it in half, and they swam to an island several miles away from the wrecked, hulk of the remaining half of the ship. Actually, what saved them was the coconuts. The coconuts were actually antimicrobial. They were putting them on the wounds. The coconut meat, the coconut milk, highly nutritious. It's a fully balanced, nutritionally rich food. It was actually healing, promoted healing. It promoted, it stopped, not promoted, it stopped microbes from forming in the wounds where there's infections that could possibly happen. But, it's not only for medicinal purposes, but it's also great for beauty purposes. And it's also good for the mind because it raises the ketones. Back in the day, in the 1920s, before the advent of major pharmaceutical medicines, people with dementia and seizures, they used to put them on high ketonic diets. And the main food that was highest in raising the ketone, it's K-E-T-O-N-A-S, not K-E-Y-T-O-N-A-S, it's K-E-T-O-N-A-S. Raising the ketones in the brain was coconut oil. Now, it also can be milk fat, butter, even cottage cheese or cheeses. But coconut oil actually was the best one because it's 47% lauric acid for one, which is the antimicrobial. But it was the best one for raising the ketones in the brain, which helps with psychiatric conditions and also epilepsy and seizures. And again, it can help with reversing the effects of Alzheimer's, especially when the Alzheimer's was brought about from taking statin drugs, because they do have side effects. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff that has side effects. It's pretty much a criminal world out there with the pharmaceutical, but hopefully this stuff's going to be legal for a real long time. And now the other thing is there's NAC. NAC is N-acetylcysteine. Now I'm showing a heart here, a heart-shaped tattoo. Basically, it's something that it could be good for your heart. It could also be good for your hearing. So I'm showing an ear. NAC is alleged, and I'll put it this way because it's a little controversial. It's been alleged, and even the military looked into it, to protect hearing. If it's hearing subject to loud noises, that the NACs maybe won't fix your hearing, but it can maybe protect your hearing from getting damaged from loud noises. It can protect your heart. It can also boost your immune system. It also helps and works in conjunction with the vitamin C to help extend the levels of vitamin C in your body at the higher levels when you're taking it orally, because vitamin C has a very short half-life. I think it's in an hour. It's already reduced by a half. Like vitamins like vitamin D, I think they last like a couple weeks before the half-life goes down because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. But vitamin C, it's like a half-life of an hour. So that's why you really got to keep taking it. But it doesn't necessarily always get expended. A lot of times, Linus Pauling actually proved this and other doctors have proved this, that they examined the urine, if you took a lot of vitamin C, that it wasn't in the urine. Actually, it was being used up in the body. But you know what? You can look at any PhD or doctor and get conflicting stories about all these different nutrients, and I already came to the conclusion that some of them must be flat out lying. Some of them maybe are wrong, but some of them must be flat out lying because they just can't be all that educated. It would, for so many years and so many studies, and coming up with such radically different conclusions, unless maybe they're trying to steer the public away from these simple, cheap things to extend life. Because I think there is a program out there to freaking reduce the population. Maybe that's a little too conspiratorial, but there may be. I think the corporate medical world is going to really come out with some high-tech gene splicing and various nanobot technology or whatever the hell buzzwords they have out there where they can really greatly extend life. But it's only going to be for the wealthy elite. It's not going to be for us. So I'm actually telling you some things I think could probably do the job of maybe the first stages of this high-tech life extension technology, and maybe give you some even more decades, but maybe not forever, but maybe some more decades. But NAC is a very, very powerful nutrient. Medical doctors, there are a number of medical doctors that rave about NAC. It's just a protein. It's N-acetylcysteine, but it's best to probably take it as a supplement. You might pay, I'm not going to mention any brands, but you might pay $20 for a year's supply if you took like 500 milligrams a day. That's probably enough. It does help the vitamin C last longer in the body. It does help your circulatory system. It also lowers another thing in the body, which is really why veins and arteries get clogged up. It's the homocysteine levels. I mean, they all rave, they all freaking bitch and tell you all this garbage about cholesterol, but it's not really cholesterol. I mean, you know what? You can work out every day. You can be slim, have a fat-free diet, or say even if you went on just the good fats, say not fat-free because maybe that's not a good thing. Low sugar, and you could still be a person that, by your genes, your arteries get clogged up fast. Like if your family, like if your parents had a stroke or one of your parents had a stroke when you're in the 40s, I can tell you right now you're in major danger. But with NAC, what that does is help lower the homocysteine levels in the body, also the lipoprotein levels. Those are the things, they don't measure these things. They only tell you cholesterol. And actually cholesterol, even I know they got good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, but even the bad cholesterol isn't as bad, anywhere near as bad as the homocysteine levels and lipoprotein levels. That's the stuff that really clogs up your arteries. They don't measure that. And NAC, and actually there's another one called TMG, trimethylglycine, that could help lower those a lot. So I'm just telling you NAC because it's probably the simplest, cheapest one to get. It's more available. Probably not available in the big box stores, but you can get it online for maybe $20 for like a, 250 pills or something. Maybe not quite a year's supply, but that's pretty good. So that can very much help with your heart health, maybe even prevent damage to your hearing and stuff. Now, the last one I want to go over is vitamin D. Now, vitamin D you can also produce in your skin very quickly, but it does depend a lot on your skin pigmentation. Black people are going to be very deficient in vitamin D under normal circumstances. I've heard conflicting things about, I think they said like a white person, if they get maybe 15 minutes of sunlight on half their body, even on a low end of that, they get at least 10,000 units of vitamin D produced in their body. No problem, right? A black person will take you have to have several times easy of exposure to sun to get the same amount of vitamin D produced in the body. And actually, this is causing a lot of health problems with black people. And I don't even know how come the doctors don't tell anybody this simple garbage that, probably vitamin D will help everybody. And, even if you're a white person, if you're an office person, you're never out in the sun hardly, or you're just, get a little bit of sun once in a while. It's like, and excessive sun is not good either. But if you get a little bit of sun, it's not going to do you. You're still not getting anywhere enough vitamin D. But the vitamin D is something whereby it actually turns on your immune system. It switches on like your CD4 killer cells to really go out and fight any kind of diseases. There's been a lot of controversy about too much vitamin D is bad. And too little is bad, obviously, too, because actually the recommendations they have out there for I forget what it was exactly. I know most standard supplements might have 400 international units of vitamin D, but that's not actually the minimum that's needed, that they say, to prevent rickets. But back in the old days, they used to tell the parents, just make sure your kids go out in the sun. That's what they used to tell them. Then in the 30s, when the pharmaceuticals came out, they started, prescribing vitamin D2. Now, actually, you want to have vitamin D3. Vitamin D2 is the plant-based. I've seen controversial things said by some doctors that it's crazy. I don't want to tell you to do this because I don't even do this, but they'll be taking even more than 20,000 units of vitamin D a day for decades and years, and didn't have any problems. But there's another caveat with that, is that when you take excessive amounts of vitamin D, which some people have claimed, is that it's actually a lack of vitamin K2 is what the problem is, where you run into a problem. Because vitamin K2 works with vitamin D, and vitamin D will help regulate the calcium in the body, but the vitamin K2 will cause that regulation of the calcium to go into your bones instead of your arteries and veins. That's important. So, what's a good source of vitamin K2, and actually what's a good source, it's also another source of raising the ketones, and also a good type of fat, cottage cheese. And just to keep it simple, cottage cheese. It's a pretty good food, You can put it on anything, actually. But vitamin D, in the 20s when they first discovered it, they were giving people ridiculously massive amounts of it, of vitamin D2, and it was pretty much emptying out the hospitals. It was that freaking strong. Both vitamin C and vitamin D are powerful hormones. Now, you really want to take the vitamin D3 type, which is the human type, with the type that we use as humans, not the plant type, which is actually D2. But it was first discovered. It still works somewhat, though. I mean, it's not like it doesn't work at all. But when it was first discovered in the 20s, they were giving people massive doses of vitamin D2. Probably the best way, I guess, to get it is to get some exposure to light. But then again, sunlight. But then again, a lot of people just don't do that. And the good thing, though, with vitamin D2, though, or D3, vitamin D, is that if you take a lot of it, it'll stay in your body for a couple weeks. So, I mean, you can, maybe take a lot of it on Sunday. Say you took 10,000 international units on Sunday. Then the rest of the week you took maybe 1,000 or 2,000 units a day. It'll last you. It'll last you a couple of weeks, that 10,000 units. With vitamin C, you got to keep taking it during the day because it has a half-life of an hour. It's not necessarily that it gets expended, but it gets used up. It gets not just excreted, but it just gets used up. It breaks down. It's being used up in the body that fast. Vitamin D will stay in the body a long time, for a couple weeks, a 2-week half-life. But that's another thing that could probably add greatly to longevity. I'm taking 5,000 or 10,000 units of vitamin D3 a day. Some people say that's crazy to do, but I have... Let me put it this way. I've heard about having too high of levels, And it's too bad is bad too, and too low of levels is bad too. But then I've read that too high of levels of vitamin D3 is not really why it is a problem. It's that there is not enough vitamin K2 to work with those high levels of D3, and that is the problem. So I'm making sure I get enough vitamin K2. But I just want to freaking synopsize this a little bit, if that's the right word, to bring out, like, there's probably some really cool things you can do right now that the big bucks yo-yos that are going to have exclusive access to the corporate medical magic treatments of anti-aging, virility, and ageless beauty for decades and maybe centuries. In other words, you know, I'm going to tell you this. They're already talking that they're going to have it whereby they can give people injections and treatments, and a 90-year-old will look like a really young-looking 30-year-old. They'll never be able to tell if that person's 90. That's what they're already talking about. That's where they're going with this. But, you know, I could tell you that with, you know, some people argue with me about this story with the flood and the Noah's Ark, but, you know, Noah was 920 years old and all this. But, you know, if you look at the ages, like Noah's son, I think, was 600 something years old, and it got down to Abraham, he was 175. Then it got down to Moses, he was 120. There's some scientists that theorize that there was, and we do have all 4 genes in our body with the vitamin C that could produce vitamin C, but one of them is dormant. But on a few people, even that dormant gene works a little bit. And those are the people that seem to be able to do anything and never have a problem. But most people, that one gene that's dormant gives us no capability of producing vitamin C. But it may have been back in Noah's time that they produced their own vitamin C in their body. And that may be why he lived so long. And maybe when he was 300 years old, he looked like he was 33. So rather than argue about this stuff, you could tell me, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm telling you this is what I'm doing now. Now I've discovered this, and I've read about this, and I've read about it extensively. I'm not telling you what to do, but this is what I'm doing. But I just want to, explain to people what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and I'm not selling you anything, that's for sure, okay? I mean, this is all, wherever the hell it's sold, whatever you want to do, fine, you want to try it, fine. But I'm sticking with this, and I personally think it's a cheap way that you can get the effects of maybe the first stages of these super strong anti-aging miracle vaccinations and DNA molecular modifications or whatever the hell they're going to be doing here in the future in the medical world. I don't know who they're going to be. They'll be available to the ultra elite. They're not going to be available to us. I almost guarantee you that. They make it sound like it's going to be that way, but I say, nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because, but I think, though, well, let me put it this way. Vitamin C really wasn't discovered until the 30s. It wasn't even until the 40s that Dr. Frederick Kleiner was using vitamin C to cure 60 out of 60 polio patients. I mean, there's a million things vitamin C does. There's a million things coconut oil does. There's a million things that vitamin D does. NAC is a very important thing, too. Niacin is very important. And I can mention a lot more, but you know why I'm mentioning these? Not other things like, say, Shaga or, some other things that are more expensive. It's because that's really what it is. These are not expensive. Everybody can afford, like, these type of nutrients. I don't want to make you any promises on anything, but I gotta tell you one thing. I've been going on this for really strong now, more so than I ever have, and it's been a new change, and I think it's very important. And I also want to mention too, and actually I'd say it's pretty criminal that most doctors don't mention to, especially I mean, everybody should be taking adequate amounts of vitamin D. And almost everybody has too low vitamin D. But darker skinned people, like black people, it takes them at least several times as much time in the sun to produce the vitamin D that, say, a light skinned white person would. So a lot of times black people are very, very deficient in vitamin D, and it causes a lot of health problems. I don't know. Why do doctors not tell people this? I don't know. I almost guess why. They don't give a shit, just like anything, you know. Doesn't make them money, right? We'll sell you chemotherapy instead in case you get cancer, right? And if you can't afford it, you know, well, I don't want to get on that subject, but I don't have it's a mixed bag with doctors. You know, some are good, most are bad. That's how I look at it. Some are good, most are bad. So anyway, this is my inexpensive methods, and that's really the key phrase. I mean, there's so many other things out there. I mean, there's so many other things out there that are antioxidants, but none of them are really as good as vitamin C, especially for the money. Especially for the money. I mean, I could talk about alpha-lipoic acid, and actually that helps freaking vitamin C work together with it, and it just gets too confusing for people. So basically 5 things. Let's just keep it down to like vitamin C, probably the sodium ascorbate type is probably the best, simplest one, easiest on the stomach and all that. You know, 1 electron donor versus 2, but still good. Vitamin D3. Also, niacin, the flush type, coconut oil, and NAC, N-acetylcysteine. And, you know, that should really suffice, you know, where it'll do you a lot of good. And the recommended doses they tell people to take are so much of a joke, and I don't want to tell you to take more than them, but I know one thing, I am taking way more than what is they established the RDA as, especially on vitamin C and also vitamin D. So anyway, that's what I'm doing.